everyone. I'm Kathleen, and Larry and I are here today with Scott Wray. Hi, Scott.
Howdy, how are y'all doing?
Pretty good, Scott. How are you doing?
Doing well, doing well.
That's
Larry's
good.
in Florida. How's Florida, Larry?
Nice and warm.
Yeah. Well, Scott, we are really glad that you're here today.
I'm excited to be here.
And I was trying to think, when did you and I meet? Do you remember? Was it a show you stage managed? Or?
Well, I think truly the first time we really met was during coat check at one of the galas at Raleigh Little Theater. And I think I was auditioning for you, but I think that was the first time that we really met.
Oh my, I worked that coat check for about 10 years. Oh my God, that's hysterical.
And I think I met Scott when you were stage manager of Filthy Rich and then came on the last 2 weekends and took over one of the roles.
Yes. Yeah. I was the ASM.
Yes.
Yes.
It's sort of like All About Eve. He worked his way into the show.
Exactly.
What an opportunity. That's amazing. That's amazing. So Scott, tell us, when did you get involved in theater? You know, whether it be acting, stage managing, directing, you do everything, scenic design. When did you start like, oh, this might be a good, cool thing to do?
So I don't even really remember. I've always was like interested in theater. Like as a kid, I don't think I ever really saw theater at an early age. But I remember like seeing different movies. Like one of the movies I remember seeing was Grease at the drive-in. And I wanted to make it into a play, not knowing that it was really a musical that they made into a movie. But like it was like I wanted, it was just interesting. And then the first like structured theater I remember doing was in 4th grade when I was on the backstage crew for the school production of Flora and the Flower Shop. I don't even know how I remember that, but yes, that was my first structured experience with theater.
That is so cool.
After that, when you got through school and maybe outside of high school, what was the first show you were actually involved in?
So on stage, after high school, the first show I was involved in was Filthy Rich as an actor. I did some things in high school, and in college, if you weren't a theater major, they really didn't have a place for you in the theater program. I mean, which I totally understand, preparing majors and that type of stuff. But when I moved to Raleigh, one of the things I decided to do was I was going to get involved somewhere that wasn't career related service.
Right.
And I went to a backstage night and kind of got involved, coming to work calls. And at one point I had asked Roger Bridges, I had done some stage managing in high school, and I asked him, so how does someone start stage managing here? And his response was, shh, don't say that too loud.
Exactly.
And actually it was like a week or two later where they reached out and said, hey, we just lost our ASM on Filthy Rich. Would you be willing to do that? And I'm like, sure. And that was kind of where my stage management, assistant stage manager kind of started up again.
So cool. That's very cool.
And I guess if I remember right, we closed on this. We had a Sunday performance, and then we must have came back together like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and got you in shape pretty quickly for the role.
Yeah, I think it was Easter weekend, and I'm not even sure if there was a show Easter Sunday. So I think people had went out on Saturday night, and the next thing I know on Monday was I had gotten a call from Brooke, who was the director, saying, hey, do you want to come in and learn a part? And again, I kind of knew the part from being backstage.
Right.
And that's so.
Did she ask you about my part first?
No.
Okay.
I couldn't fill those shoes. No.
Scott, did you have a mentor? Like when you first started, whether it's when you were young or when you started at RLT, like was there
I mean,
somebody?
I think I would say the drama teacher I had in high school, because that's when I really got more involved with theater. Being in shows and working on shows was my junior and senior year in high school, and she was just the type of person who, you know, gave me a lot of opportunities, and I learned a lot. And again, I then didn't do anything with it for years
Yeah.
until I moved to Raleigh, and just kind of picked up there.
Did she or anybody else ever give you great advice about this business?
I mean, again, I think I pick up a lot with every experience I do, and I think I actually have learned more from people who may not be good stage managers of what I didn't want to do sometimes. You know what I mean? Like sometimes they say you learn better being in a bad experience than a great experience. But again, I think I picked up, you know, a lot of great things from all of the people I worked with. Again, I knew when I started my first ASM, you know, I really wanted to learn as much as I could, having not been a stage manager in such a long time. So again, it was more a self-motivation to learn from different people. So I wouldn't say I had one mentor. It was things I picked and chose from different people.
Do you have a favorite theater or film actor?
I'm a huge fan of Sutton Foster.
Oh yeah.
Um, I enjoy seeing her in works. I wouldn't classify myself as like a super fan of anybody.
Right.
Like I'm not one of those people who, and I guess I shouldn't say that because like I've never met her, but like other people that I've met, it's like, okay, they're a person, you know, I mean, like they do a great job. So it's more the work they do than who they are, I think a lot of times.
Did you ever have a really bad audition that you want to share?
Um, Not really. Like, I mean, I can't even tell you the last time I auditioned for something. The last time I was really in a show, I think was The Man Who Came to Dinner.
Oh, that's right.
Because once I started stage managing, that kind of was where I really focused my energy. And when I knew that I wanted to do stage management as a career, like acting didn't necessarily seem as important at the time versus getting other experiences.
Can I ask you this? So where did you go to undergrad?
So my undergraduate degree in health and physical education with an emphasis in aquatic administration was from Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I have a master's degree in the same field from there as well.
Okay. I have my synchronized swimming t-shirt on in your honor
Yay.
today.
Yay, yay.
When Scott was at Meredith, he ran the synchronized swimming
I
team,
remember now.
and they were amazing. They were amazing.
And I think that was one of the things also that really, I don't think at the time sparked my interest in doing design type things. But again, it was, to me, even though it was an athletic type event, the theater component was such a strong component that I worked into the show with props and costumes and those types of things. So I think that had a lot to do with my passion for the design area now.
Yeah, I just
Larry,
imagine you having the actors on stage saying, arm up, arm down, together, backs, you know.
no, but Larry, what Scott would say when you went to see the performances, he would say, if they do anything that you can't do, applaud. I was applauding the whole time.
Well, and that came about, I took over the synchronized swimming program from someone that had been there for 25 years.
Wow.
And it was my first time really coming into an established program like that, where the people that had been in the program before expected it to be a certain way. And it was, you know, juggling those personalities and you know what the expectation was on their part, because some of them had put in 3-4 years in the program, But one of the things that really bothered me was they said, what do you mean we can't sit out here during the show? What, we have to be in the locker room until it's our time to perform? And I said, yeah. And they're like, well, nobody will know when to clap. So I kind of started saying that as a joke,
Oh.
but like people enjoyed it. So it was something that I continued through
Oh.
with it. But it was a way of educating the people, you know, okay, it's okay to clap, and we
Right.
encourage you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite show you've been involved in?
My next show.
Oh,
Uh,
and that's always going to be your next show?
Um, yes and no. I had the opportunity when I was in grad school at Columbia to be a production assistant on Holiday Inn with the Roundabout Theater Company at Studio 54.
Wow.
And I mean, it was an amazing experience. I learned a lot. And I think most recently, one of my favorite shows to work on was A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder,
Right.
just because of how big it was. And
oh,
it was a challenge, and I got to use my skills to help that be a successful performance.
and you survived. Like
I did
yeah.
Is there a role or a production or a play you've always wanted to direct, and why?
Oh, a play I want to direct.
Grease.
I have some ideas of shows that I'd like to direct with some different like ideas. One of them is Our Town.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw when the Barrow Street Theater in New York redid Our Town, where it was in modern day clothes. And I kind of got the idea to do it in black and white.
Yeah.
And then when you get to that scene where in their production, they actually went to a full-on period kitchen and costumes to make that be the color point. You know, like everything's in black and white to that point.
Right.
It's just something that, you know, and now there's going to be 10 productions across the country of a black and white Our Town to color. But you know, that's just one of the things I have those kind of ideas that I would love to try.
That's so cool. So when you were on stage, or even as a director, what do you think the best type of actor to have on the stage is? Either with you as an actor or with you as in your show.
I think somebody who is consistent in their performance. And again, I recognize that performances grow, but whatever you do in rehearsal to set those characterizations and decide which story you're telling, an actor that can consistently tell that story the way that you have rehearsed it is what's important to me, both as an actor and a director.
Yes.
I can completely agree. You know, we all have great moments on the stage. Can you give us one of your great moments on stage, either stage managing or acting or directing?
When I retired from my acting career at orientation week at Columbia, so all of the first year students in all of the 6 concentrations put together a performance that they did for the theater program. And faculty, other students, alumni were all there. And everybody, like, they asked you these questions, and then the playwrights wrote plays. And I got put in a play where the 3 people with the biggest parts were not actors. And I was one of those. And I realized that, you know, learning lines is not something that I want to continue doing.
Right.
I mean, it was a great experience, but that was my retirement from acting. It was you know, I'm done acting.
Yeah, I discovered that I've only directed a couple shows, and I realized that as an actor, you have to understand language, but as a director, you have to understand language as well, because you have to learn how to communicate with the actors, which took me probably 4 weeks to 6 weeks of rehearsal to understand how to talk to them, you know.
Well, and the other thing with that also is being flexible in your communication style to be able to work with 16 different people who all have different communication styles.
Right.
You know, how do you get across what you're trying to say, is important, and but recognize that everybody has different communication styles. And
I remember when I first started teaching, that was one of the most important things, is to learn how to give directions to children. Because if you just say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do this, and then they all do that, but you're not ready for them.
right.
You have to say, before you move, we're going to listen, you know.
Right.
And it took me a while to really get it right, you know. So, yeah.
I remember a long time I was doing Oleana years ago, and I was doing this monologue, talking to the student, the actress, and I was just reciting lines, and the director said, "Teacher, Larry," and as soon as he said "teach," it just suddenly it was the verb I needed to change how I was actually communicating with other actors and stuff.
Wow.
When I think being a stage manager for so long has really impacted who I am as a director as well. And, you know, working with so many great directors and maybe some not so great directors, you know, again, same type of thing I talked about with learning stage management. The more exposure I've had with different people have really influenced who I am as a director and communicating with the actors.
You just brought a memory to me, because my father owned his own business for like 25, 30 years. He was a pharmacist, and everyone always said he was the best boss ever. And so I would say to him, why are you such a great boss? And he said, because I had a lot of bad bosses, and I learned what not to do, you know. So same. Yeah, absolutely. What's the funniest thing that ever went wrong on stage, either when you were in it, or when you were stage managing and watching it, or when you were directing it, crying in the back, you know?
Nothing is ever funny when it goes wrong.
Well, that's true. Okay, later.
I'm not really sure I have an answer. Like I don't have an answer to that question.
Okay.
I wonder what is more scary. Maybe you hadn't had a lot of acting experience. When something goes wrong, is it more scary being the actor on stage or being the stage manager? When something like someone forgets the entrance, you're a stage manager. Do you go into a pure panic, or you just say, "Okay, just be cool, be cool"?
I probably would say, as an actor, it would be more scary because I have more control as a stage manager, knowing that I have people backstage who are looking for that person and making sure that they're getting out there. And I know when they're found and when they're going out, versus an actor maybe not knowing who's going to be out there.
Oh, that's
I,
great.
I would probably be most scared as a director sitting in the audience, not knowing what was going on. And like, it would probably be like, what, you know, like the people around me would probably like, what's wrong with this person? You know, it's that was always, especially with synchronized swimming. I mean, I did that for 10 years, so almost 20 shows, sitting watching something that I choreographed.
Right.
was, and when something went wrong, that was the most stress I got. Doing it was easier, I think, than watching something you created being performed.
And I guess you had enough wisdom and you did enough coaching. You realize that if they make a mistake, it's tough. I mean, it's hard work for them. So it's not.
I only yelled at them for about a week. No, I'm just kidding. No, again, and it's part of live theater as well, knowing that anything could possibly happen. How you deal with it and go on from there is what's important. And knowing when to give notes and not give notes is important also. A long time ago, I used to be very big on, you know, giving line notes to actors. And my philosophy has changed a little bit. If they're making consistent errors in giving lines, I'll do line notes at that point. But if at one rehearsal they mess something up, I'll note it so I know that that's an area, but I won't necessarily note them on it. So it's more like, I think lots of times actors know when they messed up a line that you don't necessarily always have to tell them.
Right.
So that's just my own philosophy has changed a lot with regards to giving things like line notes.
And you do so much in the theater, so I don't know if you can answer that. If you couldn't be a director or a stage manager or an actor, what's something else you'd want to do in the theater arts?
I think something that would take a lot of the skills I have would be either like a production manager or a producer without the money. Um,
How did you get into scenic design? Because you've dabbled a little bit in that as well, right? Over at Interact?
I did. I designed Next to Normal and Gay Card, both of those. Part of it was Tim asked if I was interested in doing it. And part of it was the realization that it was something I could do. Like if I wouldn't have felt comfortable, I would have never said, sure, let me try to do this. And it was actually grad school. Even though I went for stage management, that's really what sparked my passion for a lot of the other areas as well. Like I would never have thought that I wanted to direct a show prior to going to Columbia. And I didn't direct anything when I was at Columbia, but just sitting in some of the classes, we had a class with Ann Bogart, and it was a class called Collaboration, where we created new works. And it was 6 hours on Monday, 3 hours, an hour lunch break, then 3 more hours. And it was the 6 different groups presented the work for the new works they were working on, and just sitting there listening to her talk and giving them feedback. It was just one of those amazing things. I have a whole notebook of everything that she talked about that semester. And I think it was those types of indirect experiences that I had that really excited me about directing and getting into other areas. I did do some sound design, and I would call it rudimentary lighting design at Columbia, because there was no technical theater program. So a lot of times the stage management students took on some of those other types of things just to, make sure that there were lights and sounds for the different plays people were doing.
When you started getting out of coaching swimmers, would you see a big production and just say, oh, I would just love to choreograph the actors and put them there and just take this whole scene and just re-choreograph how they moved during this big musical number or this big crowd scene?
That's something I'm working on developing, again, because it is, even though it is choreography, it's a very different form of choreography from synchronized swimming. But I still think I think in that way quite a bit. I would rather have work alongside a great choreographer who is collaborative in that they help out with big group scenes, not just the musical numbers, that there's choreography to the number. Again, I think collaborating with bigger scenes is important as well.
If you could go back in time and meet the younger version of yourself when you first started getting into the theater arts, what advice would you tell yourself?
Do it sooner. Stick with it sooner. Pick this as your career now. Don't wait such a long period of time before you make the decision that this is what you want to do for a career.
Yeah, that's great.
That is.
What's the first thing you want to do when we're out of this virus and shut down and we can go out in public again, when we get back to normal, if we ever do?
One thing I would definitely like to do is to see theater, live theater. I know a lot of people are doing great things with online productions and that, but again, I want to see live theater, and I want to spend time with friends in person, having a beer in person versus sharing a beer on a Zoom thing.
Definitely. Oh yes, here.
I have one more question, and I think Kathleen told me this. Now, you were working in Raleigh, and then you went off and did professional work. And did you tell Kathleen that there wasn't a gigantic difference just on the work atmosphere between doing a professional production and maybe doing a production in Raleigh?
So, when I left Raleigh, I went to get my MFA in stage management from Columbia, and the program really introduced us to a lot of different stage managers. And one of my first classes that I had in grad school was with Mary Beth Abel, who's the production stage manager of Wicked. And one of the things that class really taught us, it showed us all different aspects of a musical, and how all the different departments work together.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to kind of like keep a journal and talk about the different people. And one of the things that I wrote in the journal was that, to me, the things I was learning in grad school were very similar to what I was already doing in theater in Raleigh. The biggest difference is the amount of money that that the producers have to put into the show. Like, I mean, fundamentally there was really not a lot of things that were different from what I was doing with the work at that time, primarily at Raleigh Little Theater, other than the money they had to make things be automated again. And when you have automation, it increases the prettiness of the picture for transitions, because it's all taken out of the hands and put into one button that you push. So again, there's, other than the amount of money, that's the biggest difference that I saw with productions that I worked on.
And I just want to say, I've had a lot of different stage managers in my life, but the one thing, Scott, that always impressed me about you is you were so calm. Maybe on the outside, maybe inside you were losing your mind, I don't know, but like things would be going wrong and he would just be like, okay, let's move that to the left. Okay, well, no one knew that there was a feather ruffled at all. And I admire that, because I'm not like that.
Well, and again, I think to me, that's part of who I am as a stage manager and as a person. I mean, it's my job is to help carry out the vision and not to add to the stress and panic of the situation. Like, whatever I can do to make it flow is what needs to happen. And I learned early on that yelling and screaming is not a conducive thing to do in those types of situations. If you appear calm, everybody else will appear calm and hopefully feel calm and reassured and safe.
I love it. Yay, let's hope we can get back on stage. And
I know.
Sooner rather than later. I know.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. This has been great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for having me.
It's been great. It's always
I wish we could have catched up in person.
Yes, I know.
Soon.
Right.
I do hope so. But thank you so much. Good luck with everything. And
well, thank you.
Yes, hopefully we'll meet at Raleigh Brewing one day and have a beer. So
excellent.
All right,
thank you,
take
Scott.
care.
This was a fun interview.
It was.
Thanks.
Thanks.